This Zero Now program is brought to you with the support of our founding partners.
I can't be protected by hopes and prayers.
I won't use hope towards what's next. I'll make my own way.
I know impossible is an opinion.
I won't wait for safer schools. I want to create them.
I don't want to be afraid anymore.
I refuse to be a victim.
I'm just one person.
Determined
to bring us back to zero.
I'm just one person.
Determined
to bring us back to zero.
I am just one person.
Determined to bring us back to zero.
Hi, Jeff. Thanks so much for joining us today for our Zero Now interview for the Desensitized series. I'd like to start with having you tell us a little bit about how you got into public safety, campus safety, and what specifically you're doing right now.
Sure. Yeah, Michael, thank you very much. It's a great opportunity here to be able to interview with you to talk about this important subject, campus safety and security. So I started off my career in the military. Started off as an enlisted member working on planes and C-5s and KC-10s as an aircraft mechanic. And then was lucky enough to get a full ride scholarship into ROTC where I got my commission. And that's when I started my career in security. So I became a security forces officer doing anti-terrorism, nuclear security, and force protection type work. And I spent 11 years in the Air Force, greatest time of my life. Learned a lot about security assessments, conducting, security building programs, and just kind of looking at security overall and the importance of layering and things like that. So it was an easy thing for me to do when I got my first civilian job as a director of emergency management at the University of Central Florida. And there is where I kind of focused on building the emergency management program at the university, and then later the physical security program there as well. And I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about that in the interview. But that's kind of how I got my introduction to security, and it's been a passion of mine and something that I take very serious, and I enjoy doing.
I want to talk a little bit about the military background because I've interviewed a lot of people, many of which also served, and thank you for your service. And something that has always struck me is how a background in the military and the lessons learned there can be applied to campus safety on a broader level. So what are some things that you have learned from your background in the military, in the Air Force, and how have you applied them to your work in the civilian position, advancing campus safety that way?
Great question. So security forces in the Air Force is focused on base defense, security defense, and they do that by layering. So you look at ways of access control into a military installation, access control into a facility, having different security protocols, force protection on, distance, target hardening for buildings and things like that when it comes down to the focus on terrorism. So you can use a lot of these same principles when it comes down to schools and in universities, in campuses as well. So how are people getting into your locations? How are they getting into the buildings? What access do they have? Of course, military security, hardened buildings and facilities is going to be a little different than what you probably have for a classroom or research facility. But at the same time, there are, buildings and sites on some of these campuses, university campuses that require some of these force protection measures and things like that when they do contracts with government facilities and they do some very intense research and things like that. So the things that you got to think about. Communication with the community, communication with the folks that are out there, education for the staff and things like that when it comes down to security. So the military does a really good job on kind of giving you insight into that, giving you an opportunity to lead in those environments, managing people, working with folks. So the same kind of things when it comes down to campus security. It takes a team, it's a big team effort in order to make things successful. So you can utilize the same military methods and ideas around security communications, whether it's going to be hardening a facility or a site.
When you look at how security is being handled in schools and campuses today, what are some things that you would like to change or implement from what you learned in the military and everything that you just described?
Sure. So, I took a lot of the things I learned in the military, and I was hired as the first dedicated person for emergency management at the University of Central Florida, down in Orlando, Florida. One of the largest universities in the country, over 68,000 students, over 12,000 employees. And one of the things I was tasked there to do was build their emergency management program, and basically took maybe a 10-page document, and had to build a program out of that. And within 11 years I was there, we had built our own dedicated emergency operations center. We had a staff of 9 total that did both security and emergency management. So it took a lot of the same doctrines and processes that we did in the military. For instance, some of those positions that we hired at UCF was a dedicated plans and programs coordinator, and that person focused on writing a comprehensive emergency management plan for the university. And along came with that was SOPs, policies, checklists, and then we also had to do outreach. We had to make sure we reached out to the student population, the faculty, the staff, on what they should expect for these type of security and emergency management type of protocols in response to those type of different incidents. And then shortly after, we hired a training and exercise coordinator, and that person focused on role specific, incident specific, even team specific type of training, help with individual growth of the different folks that worked in our emergency operations center and that worked with our emergency management team. And then they were also responsible for all the exercises that we did. So whether it was a discussion-based exercise, that could be from a game day event for football games or special events on campus, to a hurricane coming through, to conducting functional exercises where the EOC is fully activated and everybody in there is working as if they're working through an incident, through a full-scale exercise where we have the EOC activated and everything outside the EOC is being tested and evaluated with responders coming on site, helicopters landing on campus, and how we communicate and how we do all those things from on scene and on scene support and things like that. And then another one that we were able to hire was a warning and communications coordinator, and that person focused on how we communicate with the community. So, and that includes our PIO, our news and information folks. So when it comes down to warning, sending out those emergency text messages, outdoor sirens, outdoor alerts, messages like that on our website, that was all managed and done by our warning communications person. So those were programs that the military utilized. They had an office for plans and programs. They had training and exercise folks that was responsible for doing those things for us. Warning communications. And then finally, we had a finance and budget coordinator, and that person managed the budget of the program, as well as when we had an incident, they would help us with securing funding to help with incident response, documenting what we were spending, how much we're spending, and to help with any type of FEMA or federal reimbursement that we were eligible for as well. So that's the person that would focus on that, and that person will work with other people in the university to make sure that we had things in place to help us document those response protocols. So those are a lot of things that I learned that and I utilized from the military, bringing it into a higher education environment to help us be more prepared and resilient when it came down to emergencies and disasters and incidents like that. So that's kind of what I utilized.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that's all super interesting stuff. I'm curious, what are you doing now?
So now, I left the University of Central Florida. I got to the point in my career where, as a director there, there was really no promotional opportunities. So I just felt like I was a little too young to kind of just stay stable. And it was a great opportunity. I loved everything I did there, but the family wanted a little bit of a change as well. So I took a job up here in Charlotte, North Carolina, with a company called LendingTree, doing corporate security. So my first introduction to corporate environment. So it was corporate security and resiliency was the title role. So that was the areas I had to focus on. So Same kind of thing here. Instead of a education, higher education or a school, I was focused on just corporate offices, corporate buildings and locations, and of course our staff that worked in those locations. So we had multiple sites throughout the U.S. and one international office that we were responsible for on a corporate security perspective. So we had to make sure we standardize all of our access control systems, our camera systems, had plans in place on how we did incident response, any type of threats to the company, any type of insider threat or external threats to the company that we had to deal with. What would we do with those kind of things? We had to discuss, active shooter type of response plans as well. Hardening all of our security for all of our sites throughout the U.S. And then we actually got to build a brand new headquarters here in downtown Charlotte, which was a very exciting project to be able to do. And within that project, we also built our first global security operations center where we worked with our cybersecurity team, our risk management team, and our business continuity and resiliency team, and our physical security team, all within one room with a video wall and kind of things you would imagine a security operations center would have to be able to kind of protect the company and its brand and, of course, its employees in real time. So that was the thing I was able to do there, and something I enjoy doing, and that's kind of where I went off. But I still have a very big place in my heart for higher education and school safety. So this is why I stay very involved with Zero now.
Hmm. So, when thinking about school safety and campus safety, you've had such a diverse background in so many different roles that, in one way or another, involve security. So, what, in your estimation, are some of the quick and easy things that a school district can improve, can do to improve their safety?
Quick and easy. That's a good question, Michael. It really comes down to budget. It comes down to, there are some things that could be very quickly and easily done just by changing policy, educating the folks that work in the school on how to respond to those kind of things. When I was at UCF back in 2013, we had an active shooter incident on campus. One of the things that we learned from there, and we knew that it was going to be a challenge at the time, was the cameras and the access control systems that we had there. They were very dispersed, and none of them was kind of under one umbrella or even underneath one person's responsibility for the campus. So when we, post incident after that 2013 event, I took on physical security as well, and we were able to integrate a lot of our security cameras, access control, and things like that. We had to create a position, hiring a security manager, and that individual also helped build that, and they brought on a team to standardize those kind of things to the campus. So quick and easy is kind of really stepping back and doing some kind of a site assessment, security assessment, understand what you're doing. I think one of the challenging things for a lot of schools is having a dedicated person that does that. That was what we did at the University of Central Florida. We had a dedicated individuals that focused on emergency management and physical security for the campus. Whereas in the past, it was a second or third hat that somebody would wear. And in today's environment, a lot of schools, that's exactly what it is, a second or third hat of a lot of folks that they don't have. A lot of schools don't have dedicated security professionals to be able to focus on these areas. And that's the thing, Michael. There's so much information, especially with Zero now. We provide so much resources, subject matter experts, lessons learned from all of these incidents that's happened throughout the country. But the thing is, if you don't have someone that's dedicated to learn and read these things, it makes it very difficult to do those simple and easy things that we recommend that are out there. So you don't need to be the subject matter expert. You have a platform that provides all that for you, a lot of resources, not just for the school itself, but even for the family members of the students, what they can expect and what they should be asking questions for school principals and university presidents on the safety of their programs at their campuses and schools. So there's a lot of resources that are out there, but those are some of the quick and easy things that folks can kind of concentrate on.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think that is some really helpful advice for anybody listening who's trying to improve campus safety. All right, so I think from here, I would love to hear about some of the challenges that you have faced throughout your career in safety, advancing safety. What have been some of the hardest things for you?
Yeah, so some of the most challenging things to do is, mainly comes down to getting buy-in from a lot of folks, creating a mindset or a environment of safety first and security first, and then budgeting, right? So with buy-in, when you got a lot of new administration folks, or you got a brand new position that's trying to make a mark on the program, focus on safety and security, that could be pretty challenging for a lot of folks, especially if they don't have buy-in. So you need support from the top, from the very top. And once you get support from the very top, people start to kind of fall in line a little bit more and be a little more supportive. But then you got to be realistic too, because the challenge with safety and security programs most of the time is, we don't make money for an organization, whether it's a corporate environment or a school or a university environment. It actually costs money to have those things in place. So you have to make sure that you're a good steward financially as a director or as someone that's in charge of a program like that. But the school's also got to make sure that they realize that these programs, you can't do them for very low budget. These are things that you have to plan for. And, you can make a very long-term plan. We had some plans at the University of Central Florida that we knew was going to take 2 or 3 years or even longer to implement through multiple phases, but we made those things happen. Some years we were able to accomplish a lot more because budget was a little bit more available, and some years we weren't able to accomplish as much as we wanted to because of the budget planning, things like that. So you got to be very flexible. But some of those were some of the challenging areas that we had to focus on as well.
All right, so yeah, those are I think those are some challenges that we've heard from a lot of people who I've interviewed. And another really big one I think is the financial component, which is super important to touch on, which is that, all of these things sound great in theory, but when a school or any place who's working to increase campus security, you have to pitch it as something that is also a financially smart thing to do.
Yeah, you're 100% right about that. So one of the things that we had to address and focus on that ties very closely with the finance and the budget side of it is, so as the program increases and grows, so should the staff. And that was some of the challenges I've had to deal with in the past as well. So, if you start off with a few hundred cameras and a few hundred doors for access control, that's something, maybe a current staff could manage and help out with. But as soon as you start getting into the thousands, you got to start looking at increasing staff to be able to help with maintenance, management of it all. If whether you want to contract that work out or have people to be able to do that, because that could also lead into to burnout for some folks, or even add some risks to the company or to the university because cameras go down and no one's maintaining it because they don't have enough staff to be able to monitor and manage those things too. So when you build out a budget, security budget, it's very important to be able to focus on some of the assets that you need, like cameras, access control, emergency planning, doing exercises costs, there's a lot of money that goes into conducting the right kind of exercise, especially when you're doing a full scale exercise. Those are things that you need a budget for, but you also got to think about staffing purposes wise and make sure that the program grows with the staffing grows with the program as well.
Absolutely. Finally, Jeff, what is something that you have really enjoyed being on the board at Zero now? What is something that you've learned or that has struck you from your time here?
Well, I think one of the things I enjoy the most is seeing a lot of the same the people that I've worked with when I was at the University of Central Florida still doing and making their mark when it comes down to campus safety and security. I can tell you, Michael, these folks are dedicated. I mean, this is something that's very passionate of theirs, and every time there's a school shooting or a school incident, to see the folks chatting about and talking about it and making it a priority discussion so we can learn from those things and kind of figure out how we can help other schools and universities avoid or mitigate against those kind of threats. Um, that all happens within Zero Now. It's a great team. The saying is, Zero Now is a community designed to drive ideas, innovation, and investment into advanced school safety, and that's exactly what they focus on. So They're showing up at conferences that are very focused on school safety and campus safety. They're providing ideas. They're looking into new technology and ways to utilize, such as like AI for gun detection and things like that, because they know that staffing sometimes can be a challenge when it comes to security for some of the schools and universities that are out there. So, how can we utilize technology to be able to do that?
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Jeff, for your time today. I think this was a wonderful interview. And I will be sure to send it to you after it's edited for you to watch, look at it, and then we will get it published.